Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to look at some of the out-of-the-box reports which will be provided with AgilePoint NX version 8.0 in the new Analytics Center module. This is just the first set of reports. There would be many more in future in future releases. So if we go to Analytics, so the first category you would see is Analytics and Operational Intelligence. If I open this report, the first report is around apps version history. So if I go over here and say select an application category, it further filters it down to all the applications available within that category. I'm going to select this one. And if I wanted, there is an optional filter of providing a publishing date. These two are mandatory filters since they have a red star next to it. I'm going to go ahead and click apply. So what you see over here is it tells me that there are 31 versions of this report which have been published till date. How many versions have been published by which user? In my environment, 30 versions have been published by a user called John Smith and one version has been published by Richard. Then across various quarters, it tells me how many versions have been published. So if you see in 2016 quarter 1, there were 3 of these published. The maximum were in 2018 quarter 4. So it shows me a distribution based on quarter. And then the release history with latest on top. It tells me for some of the details for each version. So that's more about the version history report. The next report is around average execution time per process version of a process-based application. So for the completed process instances, it tells me what was the average time taken from start to finish. Again, if I open this report, select an app category, further filters down to the reports applications available within that category. And now I select the process model as well. Now, there could have been multiple process models within a particular application. In my case, there is only one. And click apply. There are some optional filters which are available over here again. I could further narrow it down to process started date, process end date, process initiator, but those are optional filters. Now, if you see, it tells me that version 1.30 is taking the maximum amount of time. It is in minutes right now, 290 minutes as an average. Customers can change this to hours or days as well. And then it gives me the average execution time per version of this process. So it tells me version 1.30, there have been 2 instances created. Minimum time was this and maximum time is this, and what is the average time. Again, my environment is a demo environment, so I tend to complete some of these applications quite quickly, but you could see the logic over here. The third report is around average processing time for activities in a process. So whatever activities have been completed, whether it is in a completed process instance, running, cancelled, suspended, those are taken into account. So if an activity has been completed, what was the average processing time? I'm going to go and select an app category, my application name. As I said, the moment I select that, it further filters down the next drop down to show processes within that application. I can further narrow it down based on application version, process started date or process end date. I'm going to go ahead and click apply. Shows me, by the way, all the selected filter values at the top. So it tells me these 3 values is what I have set up. And it tells me review and process invoice is the step which is taking most time. The other steps are done usually pretty fast. And I can see a distribution across various versions of the application. So this is showing me data only for a manual task. System tasks, they tend to complete immediately in few seconds. So that doesn't make much sense. So we have done it for manual tasks. It tells me how much time it is taking, minimum, maximum, and average. Again, this is all done in minutes. You guys can change the units to hours if you want it. across all versions. The next report is around process effectiveness. I'm going to select an application. This time I'm going to just select some other application and click apply. So effectiveness formula is written over here. It's total number of processes which have been completed divided by the total processes which have ever been kicked off. This can include cancelled and suspended or processes as well. So it tells me the effectiveness is 67.98%. And it tells me that how many processes were cancelled, how many were completed over the lifespan of this application, how many were suspended. In my case, again, because it's demo environment, I tend to cancel or suspend these a little bit more. That's why the effectiveness ratio is a little bit less over here. Now, at any point of time, by the way, you can click on this tile icon at the top, and you can see some of the data. You can see what data was used to render that chart. And then it shows me the list of all the process instances of the selected application with the latest at top. The next one is process instances for an app version. I'm going to go ahead and say select my invoice processing application. Again, there are some optional filters, start date and end date. So I selected a process model. Tells me over the span of this whole lifespan of this application, there are around 427 process instances which were kicked off. Now, it could have had multiple process models, I selected only one, so it's a multi-select. If my application had multiple process models, that's the reason you see one bar only over here. And then across various versions, how many number of instances were ever kicked off. So you know that what's the effectiveness of a particular version of a process or usage of a particular version of a process. This includes running, cancel, suspended, completed instances. So all the instances kicked off ever. So the next one is around time spent for activities in a process instance. Sometimes you want to analyze a particular process instance itself. If I go over here, say go to accounting and finance category, and you select one app, select a process model within that app, and then I can either select a process instance or I can type in a name. It filters it down and click apply filter. Now at this point of time, it tells me which activities have been taking how much time. So it tells me generate document is taking 50% of the time, and then a distribution in an area chart. Again, because this is a demo environment, I tend to finish these quite quickly. Usually you would have some execution time over here if it is a human activity, and then it shows how much time it took. Next category is business activity monitoring. So the first report in that is outgoing email notification. If I select an app category, name of an application, process model. If I wanted a process model, or I can select, as I said, multiple of these if they were multiple in an application. Since that's not mandatory, I'm going to just select first two. And it tells me how many emails were sent out. In my case, 100% emails were sent out. Number of emails sent per app version. So it shows me the usage of email across various versions. Next one is process-based apps used by a user. So this is more of a user specific report. So if I type in a username, in my case, say John Smith, and click apply. Again, there are some optional filters if I wanted to further filter it down. It tells me how many processes have been initiated by this user across various applications. It shows me the distribution across applications. So it shows me, for example, in an app name invoice processing, this user has initiated 393 processes. And then it shows me a tabular view of this as well, that how much percentage of time a user has spent on a particular app. So list form is the one where he tends to spend most of the time, and also document review app. Next up is process instance status. If I go ahead and click apply filter, gives me a distribution, how many have been completed, how many have been cancelled, running, suspended, and then gives me the details of each process instance. And this is a collapsible chart, so you are seeing that it is first showing me the cancelled ones, but I can always collapse it and go to the next category. Next one is task status for a process based application. I go to app category, select an app name, process model, click apply filter. Shows me how many tasks have been completed, how many are overdue, how many are in assigned status right now across all versions of the app, and then a complete detail of each task within that application. When it was started, when it is completed, who worked on it, that kind of statistics. How many times the user worked on it. So you are seeing the session count column. So in this particular instance, there was some rework, for example. Next one is task priority distribution for a process-based application. This report shows me a distribution based on priority. I go ahead and click apply filter. Gives me an overview based on priority. So there have been 1602 tasks which have been normal priority and just 4 tasks with high priority. And then over the various quarters, what is the various distribution based on priority. Next is user task analysis. So if I select a user, John Smith, I can of course filter it down based on task start date, end date, status as well, but I'm going to just go with the mandatory filter. Tells me overview of selected users task, how many tasks across all applications he has ever completed, cancelled, new, overdue, and assigned, and then a list of his tasks. So it shows me the process instance name, task name, status, start date, end date, and how many times rework was done. Last one in this category is user participation in an app. Again, for each of these reports, you can see a complete description if you want it. I'm going to go ahead and select an application. select the user. I'm going to select John Smith. I can select multiple, by the way, so if I wanted, I'll just go ahead and select one more, or actually two more. So it shows me how many tasks have been done by this user for this particular application and the other users as well. And it then shows a table, a distribution based on various statuses. So for someone like John Smith, 111 are in assigned, 771 are in cancel status. So it shows me a total task count. Next, I'm going to go to the security and compliance section. This is a very important one from an admin perspective. The first report is around access tokens. There's no mandatory filter. I can filter it down based on global or app level access tokens if I wanted. But if you see over here in the distribution, it tells me how many access tokens and by what type are existing in the system. Who have been creating these access tokens, which user, and then detail around that. It can tell me that there is one Adobe Sign token. Its token name is this. It is a global app token created by this user or last modified by this user across all categories. By being a demo environment, it has a lot of token types. Next one is around data entities and its usage. That tells me the number of entities by category, which category has maximum entities, a distribution between custom and standard entities, and then a list of entities across all categories and when they were last modified. The next one is a manager level report, direct reportees. It tells me within my system there are overall 4 people who are marked as managers. And here are the various managers available. So number of reportees by manager, if you see John Smith has 5 reportees and some of the other managers as well. And then when you see over here, it shows me all the 4 managers name and there is a link next to it. So if I click on the link for John Smith, it opens a sub report which shows me all the reportees of John Smith, people who have been reporting to John Smith. You can further drill down and get more details as well. So useful report to see your organization hierarchy. The next one is group membership for users. So for a selected user, again I'm going to select John Smith in this case. I can select multiple if I wanted. So I'm going to actually add one more, Agile Point Demo. And click Apply Filter. So it tells me these 2 users are part of 18 groups. Agile Point Demo is part of 1 and John Smith is part of all 18 of these. And then if I go down, scroll down, it shows me a more detailed overview of this thing. So it tells me John Smith is part of these 18 groups. If I click on it, it again is a drill down and it tells me in the BR approver group there is John Smith, but there are 2 other people as well. So a more detailed report about the group membership. Next one is group overview. The previous one was group membership for users. This one is more of a group overview. Tells me how many groups exist within my system. There are 25 in all. Which are the top 10 groups with most members within the system. And then a more detailed for each of the group. So group name, group lead, how many users are there, and when they were created. So again, if I click on this link, it takes me to that sub report which shows me the detailed overview of members within the group. Next one is last logins for user. So this is more from a security perspective if you want to track who have been logging into your system. You can set up a date. I'm going to say show me login for last 7 days. Click apply filter. It tells me on what day how many users logged in, unique ones, and it gives me a more detailed table for this. The John Smith logged in using Windows Azure Active Directory. It was successful at such time from his iOS app. Next one is around usage of Picklist within the system. This is part of data entity again. There are various pick lists which have been created by users, and it gives me a distribution that how many have been created by which user or modified by which user, number of pick lists by type. So there are 111 which are standard and 97 which are custom in my environment, and then a more detail around each of these pick lists, their name, who last modified them, and their description. Role membership for user very similar to group membership. I can select a user. I can select multiple of these if I wanted. Click apply filter, and it shows me how many roles these two users are part of. Again, Agile Point Demo is part of 2 roles, and John Smith is part of 9 roles in this case. And then a user role association table which shows me which roles these guys are part of, and I can again drill down. If I say administrator role, it tells me list of all the administrators within the system. And last one is the role overview. So in this report, it tells me there are 10 roles and then details of each of the roles which are available. So again, if I drill down into administrators, here is a list of people in the administrator role. So those are some of the out-of-the-box reports which have been made available in phase 1 of Analytics Center. There will be a lot more which we will be adding over next few months. Thanks a lot for your time.